Hi, JJ.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I love your podcast. I love the title. It's such an instrumental piece for all of us, right? When we lean into something that's calling us. So I'm super excited to jump into this.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, JJ. For our listeners today, we have JJ DiGeronimo here. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. Read that again. The juxtaposition of your very soul. First off, thank you very much to be interviewed for saying yes to be interviewed today. And when I saw your profile, I'm like, I have to get her on the show. There's no other way. So now I have you here. Let's get right into business. But before that, I'd like to read a bit of an introduction for our listeners today. So, hey everyone, we have JJ DiGeronimo with us today, a woman in tech turned award winning author who shares energy practices and empowering strategies that listeners can use to create more impact. With new levels of awareness, JJ shares a more spiritual side of her life that undeniably strengthens her mission to empower women at work and in life. Conditioned to look outward, JJ juggles a variety of external validations, such as titles, salaries, and relationships, intermingled with self doubt, negative self talk, and demanding schedules. These same pressures led many women to ask, am I enough? What am I doing? Or is this it? With over 20 years in the tech industry, she is no stranger to navigating the twists and turns of moving from entry level positions to leadership. And now she's focusing on unleashing leadership and insights from within. Wow, wow, wow. Welcome, JJ.
Thank you, Nicolette. I'm thrilled to be here.
Wow, okay. I am so excited to get into all of this conversation. But first, can you share with us what was it like growing up as JJ DiGeronimo?
Well, I would say I was definitely scrappy. I didn't come from much, and I started working at a very early age, washing windows, mowing grasses, and then I moved into working at the local bakery and then waiting tables. And so by the time I had an opportunity to go to college, which was almost unheard of, I didn't think that was going to really manifest. They asked me what I wanted to study, and I said, I want to study something that makes money because I did not want to go back to minimum wage jobs. Like I had done so many, and for so long, I think I had been working already like 5 or 6 years. And I was like, there's got to be an easier way. And so, they told me about this computers. I'm like, what degree gets hired and gets hired for more than, a certain amount of money, which was over 30 years ago. And they said, oh, the computer program. I said, great, I will learn
Sign me
it.
up.
That is how I got into tech. So I wasn't like loving it. Like so many of the kids were like, what do I love to do? Like I really just needed to be able to get a job that was going to pay the bills. I could get an apartment. And that's kind of how it all started. It was like, that was it. Like, how do I support myself?
Mm-hmm. And then it came the did you have a moment where you said, okay, it's enough doing for money? What about that inner voice within me? What is your
That took a
backstory
long
on that?
That took a long time. That took a long time. So, it wasn't until my 40s that that really manifested. I would say that, I worked most of my 20s really hard. I traveled a lot. I was working a lot of hours. In my 30s, I had a lot of yeses like, yes, I'll spend my life with you. Yes, we can procreate. Yes, we can live in the suburbs. And as that started to manifest, I felt myself kind of losing myself in a lot of ways because what really inspired me was the travel, the working, the experiences. And when I became a mom, which is an amazing experience, I had to pull back on a lot of other things to make that work. And I was also getting promoted in my career. And so I was really kind of at a crossroads, right? A lot of responsibility, but I had this tugging at my heartstrings and trying to figure out how to make that all work. And that was really the basis of why I started my women's group in 2008, because I was trying to get around women that were 5, 10, 15 years ahead of me that could give me some insight of how do you keep everything going in the right direction.
Okay, we're going deeper. This my next question is this then. What should people do when they start asking questions like what is this all for? Or now what? Or is there more?
There were so many times in my life that I've had questions like, is this it? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? This doesn't seem like it aligns with me. And I feel like it always brought me to that next step. Like, okay, now you can do this. And it's funny because I got some whispers early on. Like in 2006, I got a whisper, bring the women together. And I tried book clubs, I tried, card groups, I tried, home parties, I tried, religious studies. I tried all these things and it just wasn't like filling that gap I had within. And so in 2008, I finally got the gumption to start my own women's group. And I was so nervous. I was like, what if they don't like it? What if I don't do the right thing? What if they're like, what are you doing? And so I think sometimes you get whispers of what you are supposed to be doing, but it takes you a long time to figure out like how to make that so, and how do you get around the inner conversations that prevent you from leaning in. And so that was really the cusp of me pushing into what was calling me. And I really did not have any intentions to write my first book, but the stories, the advice, the conversations were so good that I wanted to write them down for my daughter. And at
Mm.
the time, she was still in diapers, and I'm dyslexic, so I had really bad grades on my English papers because I wasn't very good at sentence structure. But the universe, had a way of kind of aligning me with an editor. And, then people were asking, can I read this? Can I do this? And little before I knew it, I was writing like pouring my heart into these pages in the evening from like 10 to 2, after everyone was sleeping, of like getting all the stories out onto paper. And again, it was still like really for my daughter and her friends, like, how do you make it easier for women in the workplace? And so that was really the beginning of the work I'm doing now. And that was 14 years ago.
Wow. Wow. I am just here. For those listening, I'm just here in awe right now. Although my mouth is not gaping like that, but yet I'm trying to keep it together here. JJ, you are incredible. So now my podcast talks a lot about self-worth and shellism issue that we often have within ourselves when we are hit with certain things in life. Now, and you mentioned that just now. So why do you now focus more on self-doubt, perfectionism, and fears to advance women? Like, what are the common themes that you see happening during this whole journey of yours since the last 14 years?
Well, I didn't know that this is where I was going to go because I was working in Silicon Valley on and off throughout my career. And when I published my first book, I didn't talk about it because I didn't want anyone to think I wasn't taking my job seriously. And so I just kind of wrote it. And, people at Dell and HP, IBM, they were like, can you come and talk about your book? Can you come talk to our women's group? And I,
Wow.
was like, sure. So that's when I started really getting in front of women's groups and talking about the lessons I had learned. And when I was there talking about the lessons, so many of the women are like, how do I get promoted? How do I find a sponsor? How do I get on a board? And so I started documenting all the questions that they would ask me when I would go there to talk. And then I spent a couple of years doing like probably 2 years of research. I probably read thousands and thousands of documents and books and all kinds of things. And that was when it really started to bubble up for me that the playing field, obviously, for women and men are not equal in the workplace. We know that already, but it's not about being equal. It's about how we carry stories with us from early ages that made us feel less than or not good enough, or, things that happened in school or even in university where we take these stories and we blow them up. And in a sense that we really are like, am I good enough? Is this going to work? Should I be doing this? And so there's like a parallel track happening for women. It's not just what's happening, in the physical state of the workplace of how challenging it is for women to find sponsors, because most people, 90+% people sponsor people that look like that. And if corporations
Mhm.
are filled with men at the top, they're going to more likely sponsor men than women. So there's the
And
challenge of that, but there's also the challenge of what's happening inside us. And it wasn't until my third book that I really understood that. It took me, gosh, almost 20 years in the workplace before I really understood this conversation was not just in my head. I wasn't just doubting myself. So many people are doubting themselves, men and women, but I spend most of my time with women. And that's when I thought, when I was working on my third book, I really started thinking, how can I help women lean in? How can I help women get to more tables? And the way that I thought the best way to do that is really start from within and really dive into the stories, conversations, and hurdles that many of us put in place on the inside that are really impacting what we do on the outside.
Internal creates your external reality. That is just the fact of the matter. And I love this topic right now where we're going into, because it's so prevalent that patriarchal system is not really supporting us, and it's both men and women. And you mentioned that women's support group. So I have so many questions right now in my head. My mind is racing. Let me just try and break it down for you and also for our listeners. Was your what did you do? What was your first step? And then what was that inner voice within you telling you that you should do? And then did you have any conflict when you started? And what was your journey exactly? Because I'm asking, it's because I feel like I'm on the same journey as well, just transitioning out from my 9 to 5, going into therapy and coaching practice. My instructor, my mentor says, do not say you're scared or nervous. Turn that around and say you're excited for what's coming. So, yes, I'm excited. So, I wanted to hear from an expert who's been in the field for a while right now and get some advice, and also might benefit our listeners today.
Oh gosh, I can tell you so many things, but let's start with let's start with our inner talk.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I didn't really recognize. When I was writing my first book, I was swimming in a mud puddle in a lot of ways. I was in the wrong job, I was assigned to the wrong team, and I had very young kids with the wrong help. So I had a lot of things happening, and I was in this mud puddle being like, oh my goodness, how am I going to get through this day?
Why me? Why is my life like this?
And so one of the things I did in the book is I created a chart, and I put like a plus column and a negative column. And every time I had a plus or negative thought, I would put it and document in the column. And sure enough, I had more negatives than I had positives. And so I was attracting where I was at. And so later I learned, that for the universe to really kind of usher you along, you need to have gratitude for where you're at. And so finding the things that make you happy or make you give you a good feeling in the day. That could be like a warm cup of coffee. That could be gas in your car. That could be a train ticket. That could be access to a movie or something or a class that you want to go to. So really focusing in on what is working and what you enjoy, because the more that you have gratitude for what you have, the more that will come your way because you have a higher energy. Your frequency is higher. So when your coach says, don't say I'm worried and scared, which could be very valid because we are all worried and scared anytime we start something new. Everybody feels worried, scared, doubtful, afraid. But the reality is you would only be called into that if you were meant to do it. You're not going to, your
I
soul's
love
not going to
that.
drive you towards something that you're not meant to do.
Yes.
Right. And
And that
Brene Brown always says you should have a healthy balance between being scared and excited. So I think
exactly.
your coach is right on the mark in the sense of saying you should say, I'm excited. Yes, you can have fears and you can even list your fears. Like these are the 5 things I'm afraid of, but here's the 5 things I'm excited about. Creating my own path, helping people, cultivating conversations that get people beyond where they are today. So making sure you have that healthy balance. I always tell women, you're never going to get rid of the fear. You're hardly ever going to get rid of the guilt, but that should not stop you from really leaping in the direction your soul is calling you to go. And I feel like that is something that it's taken me a long time to have the confidence to talk about because I was told a long time ago, I went for my 40th birthday to Sedona for my birthday by myself. And she told me that I'm going to bring people closer to God. And one of the angel practitioners. And I said, that is crazy because I can't even think about God, let alone talk about God because I work in corporate America. But fast forward 14, 15 years, I feel like a lot of my work has to do with reminding people that they're part of something bigger, that we're all connected, and that we are all here to make our mark on the world. And that's why we're down here. And so to me, that is God. And even though I don't say it all the time, that is the essence of where we're all from. And that love and connectiveness and just good feeling is really how we're supposed to move through our day. But unfortunately, our ego energy that comes with this human body we have is all about watch out, watch out, watch out. That fear, worry,
Survival.
anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah.
So learning to shift out of the ego energy into the soul energy is really the essence of the work I've had to do the last 8 years to really lean into my life's work.
Wow. 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 And my next question, how do you define your life's work then?
I think our life's work's happening right as we speak, right? If we are like you can be leading into the fear, worry, anxiety, or you can be leading into the love, gratitude, and excitement. And you get to pick moment by moment what you're doing. And I've had to teach myself because I came from a family of scarcity. I came from a family of really, not really a lot to celebrate. So I had to train myself how to lean into the love, the abundance, the excitement of life, love in a way that I love life, not love for my family. And I feel like that's taken me a long time to learn how to lean into this side of life that really aligns more with like the beautifulness of our connectiveness. And once I was able to really figure that out, which started with a mindfulness practice back in 16, that's when I was able to start realizing that life was happening for me and that every little piece of I was working on, talking with like you, connecting with was part of my journey. And that if I could move into that space, I could recognize that all of these pieces and parts are exactly what I need right now to further me on this journey of life.
That's like music to my ears. Wow. Okay. Now, okay, I've got so many questions that I want to ask, but hang on. Let me ask the next question. Besides being a successful businesswoman and award-winning book writer, you're also a light worker. Can you share with the listeners what does this mean?
Again, something very, I feel like we all evolve and some of us are like, put the word light worker out there. What the heck is that? And then I added it to my LinkedIn profile, which has thousands and thousands of professional contacts. And here I just put light worker out there, but I really feel strongly that I have found the light within. And now I can help others find the light within them. By illuminating my path, I illuminate the path for many. And I feel like that has taken me a long time to get inside, to really understand myself, my worries, my anxieties, what was holding me back, and find the gifts, the alignment, and the knowing from within. And once I really cracked open to that, my light shines through and creates a path for others.
Wow. Why do you think the world needs your book? Seeking right now. And how can the book help us?
Well, it's interesting because I wasn't really planning to write a third book. My second book was really about how to get promoted, how to get on boards, how to get to that next position. It's called Accelerate Your Impact. And I thought that was the book. I thought that was going to be like my last book because I felt like it was like a playbook for women in the workplace. But then shortly after I wrote the book, I sort of went through my own breakdown. I was kind of looking around my life being like, is this it? Is this what I need? And I don't know, I put so much emphasis on the second book and it ended up getting a ton of awards and tons of recognition. It's used with so many women's groups. But all that excitement really was not, I don't know, I felt empty still. And I was like, what is going on? How can I feel empty? I have these accolades. I've done all this work. I get to speak with all these women, fly all over the world to do this. But I really just hit a breaking point for myself that I realized that I was focused so much on seeking outward for my own validation that I didn't even really know like how to really like appreciate myself and love without external validation. And so for me, I started having things like fall apart, projects fall apart, things in my relationships falling apart, things happening with my parents, like all these things just kept happening one after the other. And it just honestly just brought me down to the point where I was like, who am I? What am I doing? Why am I here? Why is this happening? And so I ended up in a therapist's office to talk about like that I'd lost my joy. I don't really know what to do. I feel so lost in my decisions. And from the outside, everyone's like, you got another book. Congratulations. You're doing all these things. And it was really good. But on the inside, I was literally falling apart. But I think that was perfectly orchestrated because I had to take down where I've been to create where I was going. And I would have never done this inner work had that outer work checked all the boxes for me. And so going to that therapist, I'd gone a couple times and she kept telling me I needed to go to this mindfulness class. It was a course for 8 weeks. It was in person. And I was like, no, I'm not going to that. That sounds absolutely ridiculous. Like people do that, when they're
In
on a
their sleep.
mountainside.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous. I'm not going and sitting on a hill. Like, it's not happening. I'm a successful person. I get shit done. Like, I'm going to get more done. I'm not going to go sit in this room and study something that
And this
people
is
do when they're doing yoga. Like, I don't even do yoga.
exactly. And then you're asked to do something opposite, like that is like sit with yourself and with your own thoughts. Wow, like
Yeah. And, I got there with my Starbucks. I got there with my notebook. I'm like
I can
ready to
already
take
imagine you.
notes, being productive. It's a Sunday. It's
Exactly.
12 to 3. Like, I'm going to get my grocery list done. I'm going to do my project plan for the week. I'm going to get those referrals done. An hour into the class, the teacher's like, "You think we could shut the notebook?" I'm like, no, we're not shutting the notebook. Then towards, another hour, she's like, "Why don't we put our notebook, under a chair or put it to the side?" I'm like, "Nope, not happening." Then the next class, she's like, "You need to leave your notebook in the car." I'm like, this is how I'm successful. I get stuff done. I write things down. I have action plans. Like, I'm go, go, go. So it was like the third class before I like released a little bit of just my,
Surrendered.
yes, surrendered that masculine ego energy. And we all have masculine and feminine energy, but I was so heavy in my masculine energy. Couldn't even find my feminine energy. I was like, outside of being a mom, it wasn't existent outside of my house. So that was like the beginning for me of letting go, in the sense of what got me here isn't going to get me there. And I really had to spend time just learning how to be. Sounds so counterproductive, because that's not what got me to the success and accolades and things that I really used to define how much I liked myself. And so I could go into this journey for so long, but I would tell you that there is joy all around you all the time. I did not see it because I was so busy practicing or focusing on what was ahead that I had to get done, or reflecting on what had already happened, that I was hardly ever in the present moment. Like even a talk like this, I would be like, thinking, okay, after this talk, I gotta do this and this and this, and then I'm gonna do this. I don't even do that anymore. Like, I'm here, and when this is done, we'll see what comes next. And it is so ridiculous to say that out loud, but honestly, it has been a major life shift for me. And now that I've done this shift, I've had to then like peel back every single layer. In the book Seeking, I go into so many things, right? So I just open it up, right? So money,
Mhm. It's the
money is
hurdle
a
for
hurdle
many,
for
if not
many,
all.
right? Yeah, so I had to go through my money stories. I had to go through my guilt stories. I had to go through the relationship with my mother and other strategic people in my life. And what am I learning from that? I had to dive into my perfectionism. Is the workbook I had to do to move into my life's work. And I document every step of the onion I had to peel off, and then create real tactical things you can do to peel your onion away, so that you can really get to like the nectar of who you are and the work you're supposed to be doing in the world.
Mm, You are hitting every single point that I needed to hear, and all the listeners need to hear right now. I want to talk about the divine feminine, the femininity and the masculinity. What
Yeah.
was your experience with that? Like the overachieving, the perfectionism, the go, go, go. That's like being in the masculine, right? And then as opposed to that, sitting with yourself or just being open to receive is embodying the feminine energies within you. What can you share with us? What were your thoughts at the time, and what was your experience as you break through those beliefs or things that are holding you back, and you understood that okay, it is time for me to take that step back, and then alchemize this energies within me for me to step into my true power.
Well, the beautiful thing I learned is like, I don't want to get rid of my masculine energy, but I want to balance
Yeah.
it out.
Mhm.
So my goal of the feminine and masculine now is I want to sit in the feminine energy to create and cultivate and think and connect and really understand, what do I want to do with my energy? How do I want to spend my time? Do I want to connect with something bigger? And then once I get some clarity on what that is, I then use my masculine energy to create the actions that are necessary to make that happen. And so instead of just always being the masculine where I'm just doing, now I really spend time meditating, being mindful in nature, walking in the grass, going for walks, sitting with my oracle cards, spending and creating space to just let things come through me rather than always having to be the creator of my destination. I now co-create with the universe by tapping into my feminine energy and then leveraging my masculine to make it so.
I am amazed. Yes. Did you hear that, guys? Did you hear that? Yes, she said everything. She think all the things that you need to know about masculine and feminine. I mean, we could talk about this. We could even have an episode about this on its own, right? But really, it's all about balance, I think, in the world. And I myself too experienced that because of the societal conditioning that you have to, and especially coming from a background of there are no boys in the families, the eldest being the eldest, it's like dad was always okay. I give you education, you study, and then with that, you bring that to the world, get a good job, hustle, 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 and then, great status, salary. But it's like, I always equate my self-worth or identity with the things or possessions that I have accumulated. And that is so, so wrong until I hit rock bottom myself. And to be honest, and that also started this conversation, this podcast, and worthiness. I often, that you're worthless was the thing, the phrase that I have said to myself, at least during COVID times. You're worthless. Who are you, Nicolette? So, and here I am right now talking to you, and I feel like we resonate on so many levels. And I think it's because we are vibrating on that same frequency. And then I think the collective is also waking up to that. It's shifting. It's gonna take time, but people are hearing. I feel within that people are are tapping into their soul calling more these days. Yes. This is my 2 cents.
That's beautiful. I think that's right. And a lot of people, I talk a lot about frequency. And, if you think about a radio station, FM radio is frequency modulation. So you could be way down at 94.7 or even 88.3, or you could be way up at 102.5. It doesn't matter where you're at, but you're having that experience at that radio station. And if you want to raise your frequency, you have to work to do that. And I would assure you that if you choose to work to raise your frequency, the experience you have on this planet will be vastly different.
Because we are life in life itself. So, JJ, what do our listeners need to know most now?
Well, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Exactly where you're supposed to be, because there's a lesson in what you are doing right now. And if you're not happy with where you are, you can shift at any point by changing your frequency. And so, just a couple things I do to change my frequency, which I had to do a lot when I was in the right job or the right relationship. I really had to work on raising my frequency, because you can't really change anything outside you. All you can change is what's happening inside you. And so the frequency piece is really paying attention to what you're paying attention to. What are you reading? What are you watching? What are you like just paying attention to every single day? And is it that serving you? Is that keeping you higher up on your frequency, or is that taking you down? Right. Then pay attention to what you say. What do you say? Right. So what are you saying to other people? What are you saying about them that doesn't come out of your head? Like, is it positive or is it negative? Because if you're a practicing polluter, meaning you're just being negative and saying negative things, you're going to attract practicing polluters. That's just the reality. So not only pay attention to what you're paying attention to, but what are you saying? And then what are you thinking about? And if I really mind those three things and really make sure that I'm leaning more towards gratitude, appreciation, and love, then what comes to me are those three things. And that's how I want to spend my life. And I'm sure many of you do too. And so you can shift your outside as soon as you start shifting your inside.
So how do you talk to yourself? How should one start
Yeah.
because that is difficult. I mean, you say things to yourself that you wouldn't even utter to other people within your vicinity, right? So how do you help yourself, and what is your advice to people who's finding it like it's unconsciously being said every day? They feel it's something. Why the heck are you so terrible at this? Are you that right? And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting. I just went and talked to some juniors in high school the other day, and we were talking about just this. And some of them were saying, when they get a bad grade on a test, it doesn't make them want to study anymore. They don't want to turn in their next project because they did so poorly. And what I said is, we're learning. Like, you can't expect perfectionism if you've never done it before. And I don't know where along the way that we have learned that we have to be perfect at things we've never done before. I love Jen Sincero's book, You're a Badass. She says specifically, let me see what I can do. Let me see what I can do. It removes the need to be perfect. It removes the need to have it all figured out. And I think for many of us, checking in on what we say to ourselves on a regular basis, start writing it down. Mindfulness is such a great tool because it allows you to see what you're saying and allows you to let it just pass by. A lot of us think our thoughts are who we are, but in reality, our thoughts are just a piece of who we are. And getting the tool set that John Kabat-Zinn uses for mindfulness training, it gives you the ability to be an observer of your thoughts. And then you can just kind of see what you're saying and see if those are thoughts you want to hold on to or let go by on the conveyor belt. And I think for many of us, you have to trick yourself sometimes. Like, my middle name's Jane, so I'm always like, okay, Jane, don't be so hard on me. I got this, or hey, Jane, let me see what I can do. And so I kind of turn it into a little bit like my inner child. Like, if I was 12 or I was 8, what would I say to myself? And, using the tools of just perception of like seeing myself as a young child and giving myself the grace. The mindfulness is being aware of what I'm saying, determining if I want to pay attention to it, and the action that I may be impacting because of it. And so just really kind of being in the present moment to see what's going on so that you can intercept things that are not serving you. Because you're always going to lean towards fear, doubt, and worry if you are not present. You're always going to lean towards fear, doubt, and worry if you cannot intercept your thoughts, because that's how the human body works. And many of us are at a standstill because we are being driven and like we ride this train of it's never going to work. I can't do it. Who am I? And honestly, the world needs you right now. It's the skill set you have and the vision for where you want to go. And only you can encapsulate that energy of negativity and just can't do it and put it on the shelf so that you have space and room to just really lean into what is calling you, even if you don't know exactly what you're going to do.
Yes, yes. And you said something, I caught something there. It's like you cannot be fearful if you're just truly present. You cannot be fearful, be loving at the same time. I mean, choose a side, and you can't be happy and sad at the same time. So therefore, if you choose to be happy now at this very moment, and then the next moment you have an option: should I be sad or should I be happy? And that's exactly how you're going to create this, because as you walking those steps ahead, you look back, okay, I've chosen to be happy at those, I mean, during those moments, even those circumstances around me may not seem very joyous, but I choose to be happy. So, I mean, coming back, bringing it all back into circle, it is about, I think, like you said, being mindful. And part of it is just tuning in and just be at peace with yourself, giving yourself that kindness and just hearing yourself out. That's it. That is it. It's easier said than done, but you have to do the work.
You are. And you're not here to be filled with worry and fear. That's not why we're on the planet right now. But although some of our own work is breaking through that, like almost breaking out of the shell. And so doing the work to break out of the shell is kind of what I put in the book Seeking, is how do you break out of the shell so that you can really feel the glory and excitement for what is ahead for you.
Beautiful. JJ, what is next for you?
Well, I'm working on a global wellness center in Vermilion, Ohio, which is between New York City and Chicago. And it has been something that's been just brought into my sphere based on the work that I've been doing with my retreats. And I am looking forward to bring energy practitioners and light workers to unleash what's no longer serving them and lean into their calling.
Sounds exciting. I want to know more about that program. Yes. I want to ask that before we close the session. But JJ, first, what is your heart's greatest wish?
That I use every gift I came with before I leave the planet.
Thank you. Do you have a mantra that you live by?
Get rich from the energy you create.
Wow. Wow. You're hitting everything. There's nothing that you cannot answer. You've done the work. Yes. What keeps you up at night? Is there anything that keeps you up at night, or do you sleep well?
That I'm not going fast enough. I mean, I think I can always say, like, oh, I should have got that done. I should have got that done. But in reality, now, no, I feel like I've done a lot of the inner work now that I have a lot of peace with where I'm at and where I'm going. And in fact, I have a ton more excitement about what is possible based on the gifts that come to me every day. Like, I'm constantly watching not only the animals that cross my path, but the people, the opportunities, the conversations. Doing the inside work creates the ability to create magic in your life.
That's the key, guys. So, JJ, if you could create a quote right now for you to leave to the audience listening and the world as your legacy, what would it be?
If you've had visions or whispers, that there is no accident, that you are likely aligned to those gifts already, and that is a portion of why you've come down to the planet. So even as ridiculous as it may seem, or as unconventional as it may seem,
That's your purpose. You are this vessel. Whew. So how can people reach out to you?
Well, all the links are below, so make it easier for yourself. But you can find me at Together We Seek. Together We Seek, I have all types of things around that. And the idea is that we are on this journey together and that we are learning side by side so that we can lean into the work and that is calling us.
That, guys, is how we're going to wrap our conversation today. You have JJ DiGeronimo here with us, sharing her story. Well, it's not live, but it's recorded. But you heard it from her. She's a fantastic soul. And if you want to reach out, please head on to the captions of this podcast. And then she won't bite. She's friendly. I can feel it. So thank you guys, and happy listening. Bye-bye now.